Good evening and welcome to our daily devotional reading. I hope you had a good day. I hope gathering with the Make-Believe Monastery helps you to wrap up your day with calm and serenity and some peace of mind, despite what Nietzsche says about peace of mind. Let's take one deep breath together. And as you exhale, let the day just flow from you. What will be, will be. Let tomorrow take care of himself. Today had enough worries of its own. Nothing better than a rested head to help you face the new day. But before we let our bodies rest, let's open our hearts and minds, turn inwards, and listen to Plato. Stranger, and are we not now in as great a difficulty about being? The other translation reads, that which is. Theaetetus, I should say, stranger, that we are in one which is, if possible, even greater. Stranger. Then let us acknowledge the difficulty, and as being that which is, and not being that which is not, are involved in the same perplexity, there is hope that when the one appears more or less distinctly, the other will equally appear. And if we are able to see neither, there may still be a chance of steering our way in between them without any great discredit. Theaetetus, very good. Stranger, let us inquire then how we come to predicate many names of the same thing. Theaetetus, give an example. Stranger, I mean that we speak of man, for example, under many names, that we attribute to him colors and forms and magnitudes and virtues and vices, in all of which instances and in 10,000 others we not only speak of him as a man, but also as good, and having numberless other attributes. And in the same way, anything else which we originally supposed to be one is described by us as many, and under many names. That is true. And thus we provide a rich feast for Tyros, whether young or old, for there is nothing easier than to argue that the one cannot be many or the many one. And great is their delight in denying that a man is good. For man, they insist, is manhood, good is good. I dare say that you have met with persons who take an interest in such matters. They are often elderly men, luckily, whose meagre sense is thrown into amazement by these discoveries of theirs, which they believe to be the height of wisdom. Certainly I have. Stranger. Then not to exclude anyone who has ever speculated at all upon the nature of being, let us put our questions to them as well as to our former friends. What questions? Shall we refuse to attribute being to motion and rest, or anything to anything, and assume that they do not mingle and are incapable of participating in one another? Or shall we gather all into one class of things communicable with one another? Or are some things communicable and others not? Which of these alternatives, Theaetetus, will they prefer? Theaetetus. I have nothing to answer on their behalf. Suppose that they take all these hypotheses in turn and see what are the consequences which follow from each of them. Very good. Stranger, very good. And first let us assume them to say that nothing is capable of participating in anything else in any respect. In that case, rest and motion cannot participate in being at all. They cannot. But would either of them be, if not participating in being? Would either of them be, if not participating in being? Theaetetus, no. Stranger. Then by this admission everything is instantly overturned, as well the doctrine of universal motion as of universal rest, and also the doctrine of those who distribute being into immutable and everlasting kinds. For all these add on a notion of being, some affirming that things are truly in motion, and others that they are truly at rest. So they are and they be. Theaetetus, just so. Stranger. Again, those who would at one time compound and at another resolve all things, whether making them into one and out of one creating infinity, or dividing them into finite elements and forming compounds out of these, whether they suppose the process of creation to be successive or continuous, would be talking nonsense in all this if there were no admixture. True. Stranger. Most ridiculous of all will the men themselves be, who want to carry out the argument and yet forbid us to call anything, because participating in some affection from another, by the name of that other. Theaetetus, why so? Why, because they are compelled to use the words to be apart from others in itself and 10,000 more, which they cannot give up, but must make the connecting links of discourse, and therefore they do not require to be refuted by others. But their enemy, as the saying is, inhabits the same house with them. They are always carrying about with them an adversary, like the wonderful ventriloquist, you know what I mean, Eurycles, who out of their own bellies audibly contradict themselves. Cute image. Theaetetus, precisely so. A very true and exact illustration. Stranger. And now, if we suppose that all things have the power of communion with one another, what would follow? Theaetetus, brave boy. Even I can solve that riddle. How? Why, because motion itself would be at rest and rest again in motion if they would be attributed to one another. Stranger, but this is utterly impossible. Theaetetus, of course. Then only the third hypothesis remain. True. For surely either all things have communion with all, or nothing with any other thing, or some things communicate with some things, and others not. Certainly. And 2 out of these 3 suppositions have been found to be impossible. Yes. Every one then who desires to answer truly will adopt the third and remaining hypothesis of the communion of some with some. Quite true. Stranger. This communion of some with some may be illustrated by the case of letters. For some letters do not fit each other, while others do. Of course. And the vowels especially are a sort of bond which pervades all the other letters, so that without a vowel one consonant cannot be joined to another. True. But does everyone know what letters will unite with what? Or is art required in order to do so? Art is required. What art? The art of grammar. We shall not be rid of God until we get rid of grammar. Stranger. And is not this also true of sounds? High, high and low. Is not he who has the art to know what sound mingle a musician, and he who is ignorant not a musician? Yes. And we shall find this to be generally true of art or the absence of art. Of course, a reminder that art, I did not look at the Greek, although today I had access to the Greek again. It's probably techne, which is a skill. Like weaving or painting or making something. Theaetetus, of course. And as classes are admitted by us in like manner to be some of them capable and others incapable of intermixture, must not he who would rightly show what kinds will unite and what will not proceed by the help of science in the path of argument? I did not look again, at this translation of science, but I did later in the text, they also translate science, which the other text translates it as knowledge, and there indeed it's epistemology, or episteme, which we've dealt with epistemology. So knowledge, proceed by the help of knowledge in the path of argument. And will he not ask if the connecting links are universal, and so capable of intermixture with all things? And again, in divisions, whether there are not other universal classes, which makes them possible. Theaetetus, to be sure he will require science, knowledge, and if I am not mistaken, the very greatest of all sciences, of all things that one can possibly know. Stranger, how are we to call it? By Zeus, have we not lighted unwittingly upon our free and noble science? And in looking for the Sophist, have we not entertained the philosopher unawares? Theaetetus, what do you mean? Stranger, should we not say that the division according to the classes, which neither makes the same or other, nor makes other the same, is the business of the dialectical science? That is what we should say. Stranger, then surely he who can divide rightly is able to see clearly one form pervading a scattered multitude, and many different forms contained under one higher form, and again one form knit together into a single whole, and pervading many such wholes, and many forms, existing only in separation and isolation. This is the knowledge of classes which determines where they can have communion with one another and where not. It is quite true, stranger. And the art of dialectic would be attributed by you only to the philosopher, pure and true. The other translation says, someone who has a pure and just love of wisdom. The Greek indeed says pure and just, and philosopher, philosopheo, although that is in verb form, I think. And when I read it almost as an imperative, like a command. The translation that is given in when you click on the word. Love knowledge, pursue it. That is the translation of the word. Philosopheo. Theaetetus. But who can he be? But who but he can be worthy? In this region we shall always discover the philosopher if we look for him. Like the Sophist, he is not easily discovered, but for a different reason. For what reason? Because the Sophist runs away into the darkness of not being, in which he has learned by habit to feel about, and cannot be discovered because of the darkness of the place. Is not that true? Theaetetus, it seems to be so. And the philosopher, always holding converse through reason with the idea of being, is also dark from excess of light. For the souls of the many have no eye which can endure the vision of the divine. Theotatus. Yes, that seems to be quite as true as the other. Stranger. Well, the philosopher may hereafter be more fully considered by us if we are disposed. But the sophist must clearly not be allowed to escape until we have had a good look at him. Theotatus. Very good. Thus far our scripture of the evening. I should link that song which I quoted a few nights ago. It's always in my head when I stop reading for some reason. Have heart. Being and non-being. That was the first words I wrote and the last words I wrote, and then being, non-being, and in between. And then I did write a few things in between. So, being and non-being. Again, I'm going to start at the end because that's where my mind is. He compares being to the philosopher. Okay. He says that the philosopher is the one who is in the light, that is close to being. And that the sophist is the one who is in the darkness, that is close to non-being. I concur that non-being is dark. I am sad to say that I have now been labeled as a sophist. So be it. I am going to try to wiggle my way out of this. So what I was thinking as he was speaking of the philosophers and the sophists and light and dark, the way I see it is non-being is indeed dark and being is indeed light. And I've referred to myself and to us, humanity, as mere flickerings in the vast darkness of non-being, something like that. And I was reprimanded for it. But I still like it. Mere flickerings. We are the light. We are the carriers of consciousness after all. Brief. Unmentionably brief, like we can't even imagine how brief if you look at one individual life. If you look at a collective humanity, also brief, but at least a little longer. Then if you look at life, then maybe we're starting to see some sort of continuity. You know what I mean. So yes, maybe we should concern ourselves with the light, because it is by the light that we see afterwards. But then now that is it a joke? Is it a Zen koan or something of a man searching for his keys in the lamplight because that's where he can see? That comes to mind as well. And the dark materials might just be a very significant key. The Eleatic stranger says as much when he says like, well, when we understand one, maybe we get some insight into the other. I like this suggestion by the boy Theotatus. Take all the hypotheses and follow through to the consequences. and see where it leads. I think I'm not so good with that. And I think it is an important skill to practice. To think through what you're asserting and what does it actually mean. I'm not going to think through what I just said previously. Oh, and I see I also wrote down, are there actually people who do not contradict themselves? We have so many beliefs, and indeed, I think it might be Alex O'Connor who says this. At least it's his voice that I hear, but I might have heard it other places as well. That, no, I'm not sure. But anyway, that people do their darndest when they go through books to correct all errors. And still they will open the book by saying, making some sort of apology for the errors that still remains. Because it's quite a daunting task just to go through your assertions in one book. Never mind the assertions in you as a human being who grows and learns and changes. I'm not saying we shouldn't try. I just don't know if there are any people who do not contradict themselves. That doesn't mean, well, that might be a fun game to play. See where that hypothesis lead. I also wrote down the Tao. Every time, well, for the past few nights when we read this, the Tao comes to mind, and Taoism, or Tao and Taoism. From the one, the two, and from the two, the many. I should read it again tomorrow. At least the opening, the first verse in the Tao Te Ching is significant. It's important in this, I think. I'll read it again tomorrow if I remember. One last deep breath together. Don't let these things run too much amok in your head. Unless it helps you to see visions and dream dreams. And fall asleep quietly and in peace. May the spirit of Sophia be with you.